G'day and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a little video on explaining a little bit more about what we actually do to bring these videos to you. I suppose that's a little bit more about Sam and myself. And I suppose for those who don't know, we run our own automotive performance business. So we run a business as a mechanical workshop which does performance stuff, so supercharging and engine building and things like that. We've been doing that for the best part of, 25 plus years. And that's what we used to do all the time. And whether that was also the performance cars was a bit more of what we did as a hobby also. That turned into where we have for the last over 10 years been doing the shooting side of things with making all the videos that you've seen and the many videos we have on our channel. Part of that life means that we are flat out, we're 24/7 people, we work all the time together. Sam is helping me in the workshop. She's the person who does the books, she's the person who helps me, does a little bit of the mechanical side of things as well. I'm largely the guy who does that. It is only the two of us and we work pretty hard at it. And nowadays we're doing our videos as well. So part of what's involved with our videos and our shooting and that sort of stuff means that there's always a lot of sharing of jobs. As for even right now, I'm at home doing a video for you guys, so I'm flat out trying to do this, needing to get back to work to finish what I got to do there. And Sam is using this bit of piece when I'm not there, which means that I'm not making a mess and I'm not getting her to help with the workshop side of things. She's got a bit of a catch-up time side of it in the office. So busy all the time. That's what our life's like. Now, with all that side of things, I suppose I should say also we tend to run pretty different hours to most businesses the way we do things. We start the workshop at 5 a.m, we knock off at 3 p.m, and then I get to where I'm doing whatever it is we're doing with the channel and that sort of stuff. And that's a constant sort of cycle. There's no real weekends and that sort of stuff, although workload changes around, that we're sort of busy doing it all the time. So, not whining, just explaining how it is. With a video, when we want to go and do a video, a long range video, there's a fair bit to this, to doing all sorts of our videos, whether I'm doing lots of editing, and yes, they can be from 12 to 24 hours in the process of editing and setting up a video and putting bits and pieces and all the work you have to do with the computer and with the multiple cameras and things we run. And generally around the I suppose a minimum of 9 up to sort of 15 cameras we run. Don't use all the footage, but you can't use footage you ain't got. So I tend to take backup cameras and that sort of stuff, download it all, time it all, and then make sense of what I want to use afterwards. Anyway, what we do in the way of setting up for a video. It generally starts up to 2 weeks prior, or we'll have a month plan or that sort of stuff of what I want to try and get done, especially in this, which is our ELR season, where we have dry, moderately clean paddocks this year, as you've seen on the channel. I've already put on the fact that because we had such good growth this year, or the farmers had such good growth in the paddocks, in the fields, as some people might say it. There was very heavy straw, and the way the guys that were running it, we call them cockies over here, that's the broadacre farmers, they left the stubble pretty high. I'm not exactly sure of the plan, whether they're burning it or they're trashing it back in or what's going to happen, but they didn't cut hay out of it, they left it pretty high, which meant that it was a fairly dense, up to sort of, I don't know, 18 inches down to 12 inches sort of stubble. That meant that wasn't going to be okay for us to shoot in. So this year we've gone and actually cleaned 3 patches with a whippersnipper, not the type of thing we could get a mower onto, that sort of stuff, big furrows and things like that. So with a whippersnipper and a rake and that sort of stuff, and cleaned off some areas to go and shoot in. So that's another bit that had to go into this equation. But in general, what we're up to is I'll have a plan. And over that plan, each week I'll be doing a certain amount of loading ammunition, reloading ammunition, making sure everything's ready to go on that front. I'll be setting up a rifle. And what setting up a rifle goes, everything from a rifle that's sitting in the cupboard that doesn't have a scope on it. Very few of my rifles nowadays run a scope on them. There's a couple that are set up with constant scopes, but most times I'll be putting a scope of whatever I'm picking to use on this, whether I'm displaying something or using something or whatever it is. Set up a scope on the rifle and simply bore sight it, which is normally, and then I'll have a couple of shots on the day of the shoot to see. Sometimes my discovery shots are done on a bore sight to see where I'm at. The bore sighting process I use, which I've shown previously, is pretty accurate, but it does remove the potential for some cold bores. Not that I really expect to get one in the 3,000 and plus yard stuff. So that's the minimum I'd have to do, is set up and bore sight a rifle, put the bipod on it, that sort of stuff, get it ready to go. In other situations, I will actually be pulling a rifle apart, taking a barrel off, putting another barrel on, setting it up, making sure the headspace is right, everything really just bolts back together, put it in a new chassis and put it together. Really in the setup I do only a couple of hours work to go through and put a rifle together from just bits and pieces. But that is part of the process, making sure the rifle's ready to go, making sure the ammunition's ready to go. The next thing we're obviously doing all the time is looking at the weather reports and trying to work out on the weekend prior, or really the Friday prior, we sort of have a general plan of where that weather's going to be. So we know what we're trying to do with both the weekend video, but also with what we're doing on the weekend, so we're ready for whether it's ideally later in the week, Wednesdays as early as we like to shoot as possible, at Thursday, Friday, but really you have to move. Sometimes it's Monday, sometimes it's Tuesday. We have to move things around to suit the weather. We can't move it. It'd be a lot easier if the weather reports were accurate. We very, very commonly are going out to what we're expecting to see is low wind, 5 to 8 miles an hour in the way of wind, with clear skies, and commonly, well, this year particularly, the wind is at least double that, and we tend to be dealing with clouds that we have to avoid. Sometimes that will turn a shoot off, sometimes less, and all sorts of details involved with that. But we try and plan with both what we know happens in the weather and with what the weather report is, and then that's how we move forward in the week. Then we're obviously trying to schedule our work around things and everything else to try and line up to that side of things. As said, we normally start at 5 a.m. at the workshop. So generally it's as late, the latest would be a 4:30 a.m. start is normal for us. On a shoot day that comes back half an hour, we're in a really 4 a.m. start. But prior to getting to that, on the night before, we have to basically double check that the firearm, everything that's ready, and then we are loading the truck. So loading our little Triton. So all the gear goes into it except for the firearm. The firearm stays here. As much as we live in the country, as much as we live on the outskirts of a town, we still take our own responsibility for everything, so we don't put the firearm in prior to us being in the truck, but otherwise everything else is loaded. So there's generally 3/4 of an hour of everything's ready to go, but we put it all in, pack our truck with cameras, with all the bits and pieces in there ready to go, so that's ready for us. Then off to sleep. Then we're going to like I said, 4 a.m. start. We get fired up, do what we've got to do here, whether that's comments or emails or whatever it is, make sure none of the wheels have fallen off. Then it's into the truck and out there. Generally, we're trying to get there it's just before 5, is in the peak of summer, and then it varies obviously to do with, there's no point being there in the complete dark for too long. We're trying to line up to where we haven't got too long a wait for the sun to come up in the way of the shot, but that's what we're lining up for. So we're back to this stage, we're in the truck, heading off there. We then go out through the various roads, even though actually our shooting position is not too, it's a big stone's throw, but it's only a few Ks away from us. We're very fortunate on that score. We still have a 15 odd, 20 odd K drive in the way we have to get there. There isn't any road straight from our place to there, so we're off around the roads. We go through the tracks and things to get to the property, and then we've got gates and stock and whatever it is we're running to get to that place. Once we're there, then at any stage the weather's too bad, we've learned to turn around. We'll only keep going if the weather is conceivable to get a video out of it. Now keep in mind, what we can shoot in and what we can video in are not quite the same thing. Really, getting it done and getting hit on plate and not being able to show that with decent footage, even though it makes it easier without any question, good vision, we also need to have decent camera vision. We are making a video as what we're up to. So we have had to turn around for various reasons. When the wind is too high, largely we can deal with wind to a certain degree. Clouds are probably our biggest issue. Clouds are something that's just low light and the clouds aren't going to clear. It's just we're not going to get decent video out of it. Anyway, if that's okay, then we'll trundle off up to our place in the paddock. We'll set up our target. We don't set up prior. We set up in the morning, set up the target, set up the cameras, mark it on the GPS app, which is the virtual measuring tape that we've always used, nice and accurate. You've got to make sure you use it right, give it the time to that, but mark it. I also, for most of this ELR stuff, put down a little landing pad through the way I use the drone, which I put down where you can't see it, but it's behind the target, but I want a point that the drone can drive itself to help me with what I do footage wise on the drones. So anyway, we settle that up. That's all good, flags up. Then we're off through the multiple gates and multiple roads to get to where we're shooting from. On that, you'll see us go through all the sheds, and it's actually a working property. So where the farmer, the cocky and his family live, and the other people involved with the farm live, are several kilometres away from that area. That area, all those sheds and bits and pieces, there's planes, there's trucks, there's all sorts of stuff that are inside those sheds. There's super sheds, grain sheds, all sorts of stuff, all sorts of machinery and bits and pieces. So all something that we make sure we stay safe in the way how we're shooting around it, either side or wherever we're shooting. But there's no people there. That's for all those people that have those concerns, and for the people who say you're shooting over houses. No, we're not. Those are sheds. We don't live in tin sheds like that over here. Anyway. We drive through that area there, and one of the things you see, there's a couple of old, very big silos there. I've set up at the beginning of this process, set up a decent sized flagpole, which run the flag up. That's our first real indication of the higher level winds. One of the things that's a bit peculiar around the area we're shooting is it's actually, as much as the hill we shoot from, it's not the highest point of the hill. We're shooting from about 2/3 the way up. In actual fact, it's not that much higher than some of the other hills, both where our range flag is and where our shooting areas are all high points. So there's not too much drop. When we're shooting 1,000 yards, yes, there is a decent drop. We're shooting into a valley, but in our ELR stuff, no, there's 30 yards, 30 meters, 40 meters, that sort of stuff is all the actual bullet drop is, although it looks a lot more because there's a valley point that the hill we shoot on comes out of. We put that flag up there. That's the first place we get an idea of what the higher level, so wind, the altitude where your wind is at, it gets faster as it's going higher, and there tends to be ribbons of wind going in different directions as well. But that one there is also, that range flag is also to let anyone know. You can see that flag from a fair way away. So if someone's trundling onto the property, the flag is up. That's one of Sam's jobs. That's one of our jobs. We keep an eye on everything, make sure we know where everything can come from. We've already organised, and the property is sort of arranged when we're shooting. There's no one there. There's no one using that property. And we've made sure that we've let everyone know what's going on. So that's what's going on. But the range flag up is that extra double check. And the final double check on that, or probably the solidest double check on that, is that Sam is always paying attention to the roads and making sure. And on occasion, we'll see a truck coming, we'll stop a shoot because we don't know where it's going until we know that it's moved on and figure out what's going on. So part of the job of living in the real world, we do have, and on ELR stuff, is we have to be finger on the pulse with that stuff all the time. Okay, so range flag goes up, then we're off through another few gates and past stock and all the bits and pieces, all sorts of issues generally to get to where we shoot, and then we're in setup mode. We do it very much as the team thing we do things at, which means that we both have our jobs. Sam will be on, she'll get out a Kestrel and start it, settling to get the proper weather readings. I'll be setting up our mats to make sure my mat or our mats, whatever sort of shoot we're doing, we have a low profile system for Sam spotting to get her out of the wind, or she's much more comfortable sitting on her little bag in the position that people don't know how she does it. That's actually her comfort spot, sitting up there on the little bag to be able to do the shooting. But if it's windy, she'll be down low. But anyway, I'll set up the rifle, get the general position, because that's the thing we're going to do all the cameras around. Sam sets the wetter, and then she's on to setting up her camera, her long range camera and spotting scope is her next job. Then we've got multiple cameras around the places to make sure we're trying to get angles and trying to be able to see everything so we can, and that's all very relevant for the better footage to produce better videos, and that sort of stuff is getting the right framing and all those side of things. Generally, we'll try and be there, so we'll have a 5 or 10 minute wait as the sun is rising, so that we get so that we're not wasting time. There can be, in the ELR shooting side of things, there can only be a 10 or 15 minute break in the morning where you're going to get decent footage, low mirage. Generally you got the better wind there. This year not so much. Pardon me. But there can be to the point where you get this nice little spot where you got low mirage, and if you just go a little bit later in the day, the sun's that brighter, it starts to wash out the image, the mirage starts to raise, it starts to change things. Even the impacts get harder to see when the sun gets really bright. So we're basically on to, we want to try and use that little space. And then we get all ready, everything's fired up, everything's alive, we are waiting to hit the record button to when we got the right conditions, and then that's what we try and show you. Now, generally the shoots, listen, they can be 20 minutes long, generally they're 5 to 7 to 12 minutes long, that sort of stuff. They are probably the shortest and, dare I say it, the easiest or the most comfortable, whatever it is. They're the bit that's the nice bit of the day, of the shoot. We'll go through and do what we're doing. Sometimes there'll be major interruptions, you know, whether that be a cloud go over the sun is probably the most common thing, but stock that's all of a sudden the wrong place, something goes on, we have to wait. And so sometimes they'll start, and I try and make sure I do it as neat as possible in the way of to make sure that the video comes up consistent looking. But sometimes there'll be a 15-20 minute wait in the middle of things, just to make our job that little bit trickier through dealing with whatever it is. The moment you only have one cloud in the sky, but it's parked on the sun, well, your video's not going so well. But that's the bit, and then we'll do the shoot, and that's what you see. So, shoot finished. Now we've pretty much got all the same work again, but this turns into one of the longest parts of the video, of building a video. Oh, I shouldn't say that. One of the longest parts of the time out there of building the video. The longest part by far is the production and timing all the cameras and work it out and producing and all the bits and pieces to go there, being pedantic and turning into what you want it to be. But is the drone flight. So generally, sometimes I try and do a drone flight before, but I tend to be wasting good shooting time to do that. So now generally, even if I've got a drone flight prior to the video, it'll generally be done just afterwards. Just afterwards is when I want to do things, because that stuff there, it can use the full light. I can change that. I can make that brighter or stronger or whatever it is in producing. But that's when I do the drone flights. So I through a process I've learned the best way to do this sort of thing to try and make it as smooth as possible is without being complicated and using a battery smart, is I will fly the drone over to the target, I'll land it at target, which resets a home point, and then I'll fly it back over towards us, and then I hit the home button and it'll go back to driving itself straight back to target, where all I have to do is lower it onto target. Not as simple as it sounds, there's a fair bit going on. Very hard to see things really clearly, even though I run a decent sized screen. There's a little tiny dot I'm trying to look at. But that's what you see in the way of the drone flights. But what the point of the drone flight is, quite commonly the drone flight can take up to half an hour so up to 3 times as long as what the shoot took is how long the drone flight takes to get that done. But once again, it's one of those things, if you haven't got the footage, you can't use it. So it's a pain that we go through to make, even for dealing with wind and things, rarely do we not do a drone flight, simply because of the fact of it's just a bit more effort. Once that's done, or as that's happening, depending on how it all works, is we're packing up, putting all the bits and pieces away. We've landed the drone over there, so then once drone's landed, we've packed up all the stuff back in the vehicle, then we reverse everything we just did. Then we drive back down, we take through all the gates, go with the bits and pieces, deal with whatever the stock are doing, get the range flag, put that down, put it away, take it off, go back out, get to our target, go around, check things, make sure there's nothing too exciting that we should be talking about there, then put everything away. So quite commonly find the little projectiles, the little copper flowers that you see out there. Find what's easy to find. We don't do a lot of wasting time because we're generally at work by just prior to 7 or around 7 a.m. with all the stuff we've done. Sometimes it'll be later in the year, it'll be coming into 8 a.m. But in that probably 7 to 8 a.m. is roughly when we get to work. Once we've gone through, packed everything, put it all away, then it's off to work. So then we get on to a day's work. So it's 3 p.m. before we get back out to see what we've done on the video side of things. But listen, that's a list of it, of what it actually takes. As said, that then turns into where I've downloaded all those videos, time all the videos, so make sense of it, and then start to work out what I'm actually going to use of the different frames and different images and different bits and pieces, and try and turn it into something together that is a true representation of what we just did, with some of the boring stuff taken out, so you get an idea of what the firearm was doing, but also try and make it look, I suppose, a little bit exciting. I'm not someone to go into the sensationalism. I'm not something, I suppose, bits I should touch on there. There is some ads that run on our videos, but we get very little for them. I deliberately leave the ads on the videos, or try and get ads on the videos in just a restricted way. I don't want them to be a nuisance. I make sure they're able to be skipped and all that sort of stuff, but generally they are still restricted, so they're low on the advertising side of it. And I do that because, from what I understand at least, by having a little bit of advertising on there, they will share them a lot more. The YouTube will use them a lot more. But we are always been restricted there, and I don't change a video. Be that against what the rest of the world does, I don't do things to make them more saleable in a way of more sensational, and I sure don't do things to get them unrestricted in monetarism to make money. It never works for me. That has never worked. It's not what I focus on. I focus on the quality of the product. The fact I don't earn any money from them, I seem to have never any control there, but I would never do things just to make more money and compromise who I am or what I want our product and our videos to be. Anyway, that's about a list. Like I said, lots of work. Not whining at all, by the way. This isn't a poor us video. This is simply wanting to explain a bit more what we're doing. And I suppose also to explain the fact that occasionally you'll see the extra bits, whether it's setting up, whether it's an image of the laser rangefinder, or it's an image of the scope view and that sort of stuff. And there's people that ask for more and more and more. Every time you're looking at a video, you're looking at probably around, in the total amount of work, you're looking at in excess of 30 hours of work in a video. Even when we're out there shooting, we're running pretty hard, and even though that morning might have only spent 3 hours of running pretty hard, there's not a lot of extra room, and that we are pushing the boundaries in what we get done. So we really are trying to do a fair bit, but just doing the extra little bit, I probably would suggest to have a think about what we're already doing. We're doing a fair bit to try and make these nice, and the extra bit isn't as simple as that. There's all sorts of stuff we're dealing. Images, especially the type we're talking about, only exist for a short amount of time. If you've ever gone out to take that sunrise video, or that sunrise picture even, or the sunset picture in it, you'll realise that when you're dealing with the sun, and especially through those beginning parts and end parts of the days, I know in taking car photography, there's around the 30-second window sometimes where that image is just perfect. And yeah, you've got to work with it. So that's what we're doing. It's a bit bigger than that, the little window we're looking at, but it is a pretty small window, and we're running pretty hard to do it. Anyway, guys, as I said, not whinging about it. Just wanted to really let you guys know a little bit more of what this process is. Fair bit to it. I suppose a bracket I'd also say, I see occasionally from people, do you ever get bored just doing this? Do you ever get bored just going out and shooting long range? I suppose ultimately I get it when you're just watching a video. When you're doing this, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of challenge to it. Yes, we're starting to make it look pretty easy. I suppose the way I look at that side of things is we're getting better at it for sure, but in my way of looking at things, you're only as good as the last shoot. You know, I'm not one to settle on records. I'm not one to even bother with trying for that sort of thing. To me, I am what I am. I am what I'm doing. I am not what I've done. Those are all things that I've done. But I go out, we are, not me, we are. Both Sam, people say how excited Sam gets to see a hit. This is real stuff. This takes real effort from both of us to create this. Working together, whether people understand that connection or don't, that's real effort every time. And yes, it is good to get it done. It still is exciting to get on at 3,000 yards. It's exciting to get on at 2,000 yards. There are things that take a real challenge, and I really believe our main, apart from our teamwork side of it, our main benefit, the main reason we are good at it is because we keep doing it and we keep practiced at it and lots of trigger time and lots of effort into it, and that's why we can do it. So at this stage at least, while we can do it and people are happy to watch it and we have the time and can make it happen, yeah, it's good fun to do. So, and thank you very much for being along for the ride, everybody. But anyway, that's my video for today. I hope that didn't end up being too long, and I hope that let you guys know a little bit more about what we do. And other than that, thanks for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.